The darkness of space stretched endlessly around the eclipse, a sleek warship stationed near Jupiter's orbit. Commander Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the swirling storms of the gas giant outside the viewport. He had spent years preparing for this moment, but nothing could fully prepare him for what was coming. The Krylos Collective, an alien armada from a distant part of the galaxy, was approaching. Their ships were massive, their weapons advanced, and their intentions clear: domination. Ryan's mind raced as he thought about the reports flooding in from Earth's fleet. The Krylos had already crushed smaller civilizations, leaving behind only ruins. Now they were heading toward Earth, and humanity's survival depended on the strength of its united forces. For decades, Earth's nations had fought among themselves, but the threat of extinction had finally brought them together under the banner of the Earth United Defense Force, EUDF. It was a fragile alliance, held together by fear and necessity, but it was all they had. Behind him, Lieutenant Samantha Brooks, or Sam as everyone called her, approached. Her steady voice broke the silence. "Commander, we've received updated intel. The Krylos fleet is larger than we anticipated. Thousands of ships, maybe more." Ryan nodded, his jaw tightening. "Any word from Admiral Hayes?" "She's coordinating with Earth's leaders," Sam replied. "They're finalizing the defense strategy. But she made one thing clear: if we lose here, Earth won't stand a chance." Ryan turned to face her. Sam was young but sharp, with a calmness that balanced his own intensity. She had been by his side since the early days of the EUDF, and he trusted her completely. Still, the weight of command pressed heavily on him. Every decision he made could mean life or death for billions of people back home. "Do the crew know?" Ryan asked quietly. Sam hesitated before answering. "Not all of them. Some suspect, but most are focused on their duties. Morale is holding for now." Ryan glanced at the bustling activity on the bridge. Officers moved between stations, checking systems and running simulations. Everyone knew this was no ordinary mission, but not everyone understood just how dire the situation was. The Krylos weren't just another enemy. They were a force unlike anything humanity had ever faced. As if reading his thoughts, Sam added, "We've trained for this, sir. We've prepared. If anyone can stop them, it's us." Ryan wanted to believe her, but doubt lingered in the back of his mind. The Krylos technology was far beyond anything Earth possessed. Their ships could generate energy shields strong enough to withstand entire barrages of missiles. And then there were the rumors. Whispers of biological weapons capable of wiping out entire populations in days. "Let's hope you're right," Ryan said finally. He took a deep breath and straightened his posture. Doubt wouldn't help anyone. What mattered now was action. "Tell engineering to double-check the plasma cannons. I want every system operational before they get here." "Yes, sir," Sam replied, turning to relay the order. Ryan returned his gaze to Jupiter. Its massive red storm seemed almost peaceful compared to the chaos brewing in his mind. He thought about Earth, the cities, the forests, the oceans. Billions of lives depending on him and his crew. He couldn't fail them. A sudden beep interrupted his thoughts. One of the officers called out, "Sir, we're picking up unusual readings near Europa Station. It looks like interference." Ryan frowned. "Interference? From what?" The officer hesitated. "It's hard to say, sir. Could be natural phenomena, or the Krylos," Ryan finished. His heart sank. If the aliens were already probing Earth's defenses, things were worse than he'd feared. "Send a recon team to investigate," Ryan ordered. "I want answers. Now." As orders were given and preparations began, Ryan felt the first stirrings of real fear. This wasn't just a battle. It was the fight of their lives. And it was only the beginning. The tension aboard the Eclipse was palpable as the recon team prepared for their mission to Europa Station. Commander Ryan Carter stood in the briefing room, watching as Lieutenant Samantha Brooks outlined the plan. The station, located on one of Jupiter's icy moons, had reported strange energy readings before going silent. It was a bad sign, and Ryan knew they couldn't ignore it. "This isn't just a routine check," Sam said, her voice steady but firm. "If the Krylos have infiltrated the station, we need to neutralize the threat. And fast. They could be gathering intel on our defenses." Ryan nodded. "Agreed. We can't let them get an edge over us." "Who's leading the team?" "I'll go," Sam volunteered immediately. She met Ryan's questioning gaze with determination. "You're needed here, sir. If something goes wrong, you're the only one who can hold the fleet together." Ryan hesitated. He didn't like sending his second-in-command into danger, but he knew she was right. "All right, but I'm assigning Corporal Daniel Hayes to your team. His engineering skills might come in handy if things get complicated." Sam gave a quick nod. "Understood." Daniel, a wiry man with sharp eyes and a knack for solving problems under pressure, joined them moments later. "You wanted me, sir?" he asked, glancing between Ryan and Sam. "You're with Lieutenant Brooks," Ryan said. "Your job is to secure any data you find and disable anything that looks suspicious. Got it?" "Yes, sir," Daniel replied without hesitation. As the team suited up and boarded a shuttle, Ryan watched from the hangar bay. The thought of losing key members weighed heavily on him, but there was no time for doubt. Every decision mattered now. The journey to Europa Station was quiet, the only sounds coming from the hum of the shuttle's engines and the occasional crackle of static over the comms. Sam sat at the controls, her focus unwavering. Behind her, Daniel checked his equipment, muttering to himself about possible scenarios. Two other Marines, Jenkins and Morales, kept watch through the windows, scanning for signs of trouble. When they arrived, the station loomed ahead, a massive structure clinging to the moon's icy surface. Its lights flickered faintly, casting eerie shadows against the frozen landscape. Something felt off. "Docking bay looks clear," Sam announced as the shuttle landed. "Let's move quickly." The team stepped onto the station, their boots crunching against the thin layer of frost inside the airlock. The temperature was frigid, and the silence was unnerving. As they moved deeper into the corridors, the lack of activity became more apparent. Where were the crew? What had happened here? "Keep your eyes open," Sam whispered, raising her weapon. "This place feels wrong." Daniel knelt by a console, his fingers flying over the keys. "I'm picking up traces of energy fluctuations. Whatever caused the interference, it's still active." Suddenly, a low growl echoed down the hallway. Everyone froze. Jenkins signaled toward a nearby doorway, where movement could be seen in the dim light. Without warning, a group of spider-like drones scuttled into view, their metallic legs clicking against the floor. "Hostiles," Morales shouted, opening fire. The team scattered, taking cover behind crates and walls. The drones were small but fast, darting unpredictably as they returned fire with bursts of energy. Sam fired steadily, taking down two of them before shouting orders. "Daniel, disable their control hub. Jenkins, Morales, cover him." Daniel sprinted toward another console, dodging blasts as he worked. His hands trembled slightly, but his focus never wavered. After what felt like an eternity, the drone suddenly froze mid-motion, collapsing to the ground. "It's done," Daniel panted, wiping sweat from his brow. "But this isn't good. These things are Krylos tech. They've been studying us." Sam frowned. "Which means they know more than we thought." Before they could regroup, alarms blared throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and a robotic voice announced, "Intruder alert. Lockdown initiated. We need to get out of here. Now," Sam ordered. The team raced back toward the docking bay, but the path was blocked by reinforced doors. Daniel cursed under his breath. "They've sealed us in." Morales pointed to a maintenance hatch above them. "There, we can climb through the vents." One by one, they hoisted themselves into the narrow tunnels, crawling as quickly as they could. The sound of pounding footsteps grew louder below them. More drones, closing in. Finally, they'd reached the docking bay, slipping inside just as the first wave of enemies breached the corridor. Sam sealed the door behind them and rushed to the shuttle's controls. "Hold on," she yelled, launching the craft into space. As they sped away from Europa Station, none of them spoke. The weight of what they'd discovered hung heavy in the air. The Krylos weren't just testing Earth's defenses, they were already inside them. And time was running out. The shuttle carrying Lieutenant Samantha Brooks and her team hurtled back toward the eclipse, its engines roaring as it escaped the icy grip of Europa. Inside, the mood was tense. No one spoke much. They were too busy processing what they had seen at the station. The Krylos drones, the strange energy readings, and the sudden lockdown. It all pointed to one thing. The aliens weren't just coming. They were already here. As the shuttle docked with the warship, Commander Ryan Carter waited anxiously in the hangar bay. His face was grim as Sam and the others stepped out, their expressions telling him everything he needed to know. Something was very wrong. "Report," Ryan said immediately, his voice calm but firm. Sam nodded, taking a deep breath before speaking. "Europa Station is compromised, sir. We found traces of Krylos tech everywhere. Those spider-like drones attacked us. They're fast, smart, and clearly designed for infiltration." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Did you recover any data?" Daniel Hayes stepped forward, holding up a small device. "I managed to download some files before we left. It looks like they've been studying our systems for a while now. Weapons, shields, communications. They've got detailed info on all of it." Ryan's jaw tightened. If the Krylos knew Earth's capabilities so well, the upcoming battle would be even harder than expected. "Get that data to Dr. Emily Dawson immediately. She'll need to analyze it." "Yes, sir," Daniel replied, hurrying off with the device. Ryan turned back to Sam. "Casualties?" "No, sir, but it was close. The station's crew. I don't think they made it." Ryan looked away for a moment, his mind racing. He couldn't afford to dwell on losses, not yet. There would be time to mourn later if they survived this. For now, every second counted. On the bridge, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. Officers worked silently at their stations, monitoring the fleet's status and scanning for enemy activity. Dr. Emily Dawson, a soft-spoken scientist with sharp eyes, joined Ryan and Sam as they reviewed the intel from Europa. "This isn't good," Emily said after examining the files. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge of urgency to it. "These schematics show that the Krylos have reverse-engineered parts of our technology. Their plasma cannons are based on designs stolen from Earth's research labs." "How is that possible?" Sam asked, frowning. "We've kept those projects classified." Emily hesitated before answering. "There must have been leaks, spies, maybe, or they intercepted transmissions somehow. Either way, they'd been planning this for years." Ryan clenched his fists. Betrayal wasn't something he'd considered until now. Someone, somewhere, had given the Krylos access to Earth's secrets, and whoever it was, they'd signed humanity's death warrant. "We can't fix the past," Ryan said finally, "but we can prepare for the future." "What about their biological weapons? Did you find anything on that?" Emily nodded slowly. "Yes. From what I can tell, they've developed a pathogen capable of targeting specific DNA sequences. If they release it, it could devastate entire populations within days." Sam's face paled. "Can we counter it?" "I'm working on it," Emily replied. "But it'll take time. Time we might not have." Ryan stared out the viewport at Jupiter's swirling storms, his mind racing. The Krylos were better equipped, better informed, and more ruthless than anyone had anticipated. Humanity's survival depended on stopping them. But how? Later that evening, Ryan stood alone on the observation deck, staring into the void of space. The weight of command pressed down on him like never before. Every decision he made carried unimaginable consequences. Behind him, Sam approached quietly. "You should get some rest, sir," she said gently. You won't do anyone any good if you burn out. Ryan shook his head. I can't. Not when so much is at stake. Sam placed a hand on his shoulder. We're with you, Ryan. All of us. You don't have to carry this burden alone. Her words brought a flicker of comfort, but the fear remained. Out there, beyond the shadow of Jupiter, the Krylos fleet was growing closer, and soon Earth's fleet would face them in open battle. Whether humanity lived or died depended on what happened next. The days that followed were a blur of activity aboard the Eclipse. Commander Ryan Carter pushed himself and his crew to their limits, knowing that every moment counted. The intel recovered from Europa Station painted a grim picture. The Krylos Collective wasn't just an invading force. They were a calculated, methodical enemy with years of preparation behind them. Humanity's chances of survival seemed slimmer with each passing hour. Dr. Emily Dawson worked tirelessly in the ship's lab, poring over the stolen data. Her findings confirmed the worst fears. The Krylos had not only studied Earth's technology, but also adapted it to suit their own needs. Their plasma cannons were more powerful than anything humanity possessed, and their energy shields could withstand even the most advanced missiles. But what worried Emily most was the biological weapon. The pathogen they had developed was designed to target specific genetic markers unique to humans. If released, it would spread like wildfire, leaving devastation in its wake. Ryan visited the lab late one night, his face lined with exhaustion. Any progress on a countermeasure? He asked, his voice low. Emily looked up from her work, her eyes bloodshot but determined. I've identified the structure of the pathogen. It's clever. They've engineered it to bypass our immune systems entirely. But I think I can create a vaccine, if I have enough time. How much time do you need? Ryan pressed. At least 2 days, she replied. Maybe 3. But sir, if the Krylos deploy it before then. Ryan nodded, cutting her off. He didn't need her to finish the sentence. Failure wasn't an option, not when billions of lives depended on stopping the Krylos. Do whatever it takes, he said firmly. We'll hold them off as long as we can. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Samantha Brooks led training exercises for the fleet's pilots and Marines. Every soldier aboard the Eclipse knew the stakes, and morale was fragile. Sam did her best to keep spirits high, reminding everyone of why they were fighting. For Earth, for their families, for the future. But the fear was palpable, lurking beneath the surface of every conversation. Captain Jake Thompson, one of the fleet's top pilots, approached Sam after a particularly grueling simulation. Lieutenant, do you really think we stand a chance against them? Their ships are bigger, faster, and better armed than ours. Sam met his gaze, her expression unwavering. Jake, we don't have the luxury of doubt. We've trained for this. We've prepared. And we're not alone. We've got the entire fleet backing us up. If anyone can stop the Krylos, it's us. Jake hesitated, then nodded. You're right. Thanks, Lieutenant. As Sam watched him walk away, she felt a pang of uncertainty herself. She believed in their mission, but the odds were stacked heavily against them. Still, she couldn't let her doubt show. The crew needed strength, and she would give it to them no matter what. Back on the bridge, Ryan reviewed the fleet's formations with Admiral Laura Hayes, who communicated via holographic transmission. The Admiral's face was stern, her voice commanding. Commander, we've received word that the Krylos fleet has entered the outer solar system. They're moving slower than expected, which suggests they're probing our defenses. Or waiting for reinforcements, Ryan added grimly. Hayes nodded. Either way, we need to be ready. I'm deploying additional ships to reinforce your position near Jupiter. Hold the line at all costs. Yes, ma'am, Ryan replied. As the transmission ended, he turned to Sam, who stood nearby. We're running out of time. I know, Sam said quietly, but we've got a plan. That's more than they have. Ryan managed a faint smile. Let's hope it's enough. As the hours ticked by, the tension aboard the Eclipse grew unbearable. Officers moved between stations, double-checking systems and running final diagnostics. Pilots prepped their fighters, ensuring every weapon was loaded and every shield fully charged. Engineers worked around the clock, reinforcing hulls and repairing damaged components. Everyone knew the battle was coming, and soon. Late that night, Ryan found himself staring out at Jupiter once again. Its massive storms seemed almost peaceful compared to the chaos brewing in his mind. For a brief moment, he allowed himself to imagine a different future, a future where humanity thrived among the stars, free from fear. But that future wouldn't come easily. It would have to be fought for, earned with blood and sacrifice. Behind him, Sam joined him silently. Neither spoke. Words weren't necessary. Together, they stood in the shadow of the gas giant, watching and waiting. The galaxy held its breath, and Earth's fate hung in the balance. The moment everyone had been dreading finally arrived. The Krylos fleet emerged from the darkness of space, their ships appearing like shadows against the stars. They came in waves, massive vessels that dwarfed even Earth's largest warships. Their arrival was silent at first, a stark contrast to the chaos they brought with them. From the bridge of the Eclipse, Commander Ryan Carter watched as the alien armada took formation near the edge of Jupiter's orbit. "They're here," someone muttered under their breath, the words heavy with dread. Ryan didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on the viewport, scanning the endless sea of enemy ships. There were hundreds, maybe thousands, of them, each one bristling with weapons and glowing with energy shields. The sight was overwhelming, but Ryan forced himself to stay calm. Panic wouldn't help anyone now. "Open a channel," he ordered, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. Lieutenant Samantha Brooks nodded and relayed the command. Moments later, the face of a Krylos ambassador appeared on the main screen. It was an insectoid creature, its elongated body covered in chitinous armor. Its multifaceted eyes glowed faintly, and its mandibles clicked as it spoke in a language that sounded like grinding metal. A translation program converted its words into English. "You are primitive," the ambassador declared, its tone cold and dismissive. "Your existence is meaningless. Surrender now, and we will spare your planet from total annihilation." The room fell silent. Every officer on the bridge held their breath, waiting for Ryan's response. He stepped closer to the screen, his expression unreadable. "No," he said firmly, "we won't surrender. Humanity doesn't bow to threats. If you want Earth, you'll have to take it from us." The ambassador tilted its head slightly, as if amused. "Foolish, you cannot win. Your end is inevitable." With that, the transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Ryan turned to Sam. "Prepare the fleet. This isn't over." Admiral Laura Hayes' voice crackled over the comms moments later. "Commander, we've lost contact with several outposts near Saturn. The Krylos are testing our defenses. Be ready. They'll strike soon." "We're ready," Ryan replied, though deep down, he wasn't sure if they truly were. The Krylos ships were larger, faster, and more advanced than anything humanity had ever faced. But fear wouldn't stop him. He had promised to protect Earth, and he intended to keep that promise. On the hangar deck, pilots scrambled to their fighters, strapping in and running final checks. Captain Jake Thompson gave a thumbs up to his wingman before launching into space. The fleet spread out in a defensive formation, creating a wall between the Krylos and Earth. Every ship was armed to the teeth, every soldier prepared to fight to the death. The first shots came without warning. A barrage of plasma fire lit up the void, slamming into Earth's shields. The impact rattled the Eclipse, throwing some crew members off balance. Alarms blared as officers shouted orders. "Shield holding at 70%, called out one of the engineers. "Return fire," Ryan commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Target their lead cruiser." The fleet responded instantly, unleashing a storm of missiles and laser blasts. For a brief moment, it seemed like they might gain the upper hand. Several Krylos ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, debris scattering across space. But then the aliens retaliated, their plasma cannons tearing through Earth's defenses with terrifying efficiency. Shields down to 40%. Another officer yelled. Ryan clenched his fists. Divert power from non-essential systems. Keep those shields up. Nearby, Lieutenant Brooks coordinated with the other ships, ensuring they maintained their formation. Hold the line, she shouted over the comms. Don't let them break through. Despite their efforts, the Krylos pressed forward relentlessly. Their ships moved with precision, dodging attacks and targeting weak points in Earth's fleet. Explosions erupted around the eclipse as smaller vessels were destroyed, their crews lost forever. Ryan gritted his teeth, refusing to give up. Humanity's survival depended on this battle, and he wasn't about to let them down. Not yet. The battle raged on, a chaotic storm of light and destruction. In the cold emptiness of space, Earth's fleet fought valiantly, but the Krylos' overwhelming numbers and superior technology began to take their toll. The eclipse shuddered violently as another plasma blast struck its shields, the impact sending sparks flying across the bridge. Officers scrambled to keep systems online while alarms blared incessantly. Shields at 20%. An engineer shouted, his voice trembling. We can't take much more of this. Commander Ryan Carter gripped the railing near his command chair, his knuckles white. He knew they were outmatched, but surrender wasn't an option. Not yet. Divert all remaining power to the front shields, he ordered. Focus fire on their lead cruiser. We need to break their momentum. Lieutenant Samantha Brooks relayed the order to the fleet, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. All ships, concentrate fire on target Alpha 7. Repeat, target Alpha 7. The fleet responded instantly, unleashing a barrage of missiles and laser blasts at the massive Krylos cruiser. For a moment, it seemed like their efforts might pay off. The alien ship's shields flickered, then collapsed under the relentless assault. A cheer went up on the bridge as the vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light. But the victory was short-lived. The Krylos quickly adjusted their formations, surrounding Earth's ships with alarming speed. Smaller alien drones darted between the larger vessels, targeting weaker points and disabling engines. One by one, Earth's ships began to fall, their hulls breached and crews lost to the void. We're losing too many ships, Sam called out, her voice tinged with desperation. Sir, we need to fall back and regroup. Ryan hesitated. Retreating felt like admitting defeat, but he knew she was right. If they stayed, the entire fleet would be wiped out. Signal the retreat, he said finally. Fall back to Saturn's rings. Use the terrain to our advantage. The order spread quickly through the fleet, and what remained of Earth's forces began pulling away from the fight. Pilots like Captain Jake Thompson led daring runs to cover their retreat, weaving through enemy fire to buy time for the larger ships. Jake's fighter took several hits, smoke trailing behind him as he limped toward safety. They're chasing us, someone yelled from the sensor station. Multiple Krylos ships incoming. Keep moving, Ryan barked. We'll hold them off at Saturn. As the fleet fled, the Krylos pursued relentlessly, their glowing weapons lighting up the darkness. The sight was terrifying, but Ryan refused to give in to despair. They still had a chance, if they could reach Saturn. Hours later, the battered remnants of Earth's fleet regrouped near Saturn's rings. The massive planet loomed ahead, its golden rings shimmering faintly in the sunlight. It was a beautiful sight, but no one aboard the Eclipse had time to admire it. Every officer worked feverishly to repair damage and prepare for the next phase of the battle. Dr. Emily Dawson joined Ryan on the bridge, her face pale but determined. Commander, I've made progress on the vaccine. If the Krylos deploy their biological weapon, we might be able to counter it, but only if we survive long enough to distribute it. Ryan nodded. Then we'd better make sure we do. Sam approached, holding a datapad. Sir, I've analyzed the terrain here. The rings will give us cover, and the asteroids can disrupt their sensors. We can use that to ambush them. Good work, Ryan said. Tell the fleet to spread out and stay hidden. When they come through, we hit them hard." The crew sprang into action, positioning ships among the icy debris of Saturn's rings. Pilots readied their fighters, while engineers worked overtime to patch up damaged hulls. Everyone knew the stakes. This was their last stand. If they failed here, Earth was doomed. When the Krylos fleet arrived, they moved cautiously, wary of the dense asteroid field. Their ships slowed as they scanned the area, unaware of the trap waiting for them. Ryan watched silently from the bridge, his hand resting on the arm of his chair. "Wait for it," he murmured. Moments later, the first Krylos cruiser entered the kill zone. Ryan gave the signal, and Earth's fleet erupted from hiding, unleashing a devastating surprise attack. Missiles and lasers tore through the alien ships, catching them off guard. Explosions lit up the rings as pilots like Jake performed daring maneuvers, taking down enemy fighters with precision. For the first time since the battle began, hope flickered in Ryan's chest. Against all odds, humanity was fighting back and winning. But the Krylos weren't defeated yet. As reinforcements poured in, the battle intensified once again, and Ryan knew the hardest part was still to come. The ambush at Saturn's rings gave Earth's fleet a brief advantage, but it wasn't enough to turn the tide of the battle. The Krylos quickly adapted, their ships maneuvering through the asteroid field with surprising agility. Plasma blasts tore through the debris, forcing Earth's forces to scatter. The Eclipse shook violently as another blast struck its weakened shields, sending sparks flying across the bridge. "Shields are failing," an engineer shouted. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before they collapse completely." Commander Ryan Carter clenched his jaw. They had fought hard, but the Krylos numbers were simply too great. Every ship in the fleet was battered and bruised, their crews stretched to the breaking point. Still, Ryan refused to give up. Humanity's survival depended on this fight, and he wasn't about to let them down. "Divert all remaining power to the engines," he ordered. "We need to draw them away from the other ships." Lieutenant Samantha Brooks hesitated. "Sir, if we break formation, the Krylos will focus all their firepower on us." "I know," Ryan replied, his voice firm. "But if we don't, the rest of the fleet won't stand a chance." "Do it." Sam nodded reluctantly and relayed the order. The Eclipse surged forward, its engines roaring as it broke away from the others. The move caught the Krylos' attention immediately. Several alien ships turned to pursue, their weapons locking onto the fleeing warship. "They're following us," someone called out from the sensor station. "Good," Ryan said. "Keep them chasing us. Buy the fleet time to regroup." Meanwhile, aboard one of the smaller support vessels, Corporal Daniel Hayes worked frantically to implement a plan he had been developing since the mission to Europa Station. Using the data he had recovered, Daniel had discovered a vulnerability in the Krylos Central Command network. If he could hack into it, he might be able to disrupt their communications and coordination, temporarily crippling their fleet. "We're running out of time," Daniel muttered to himself as his fingers flew over the console. Sweat dripped from his brow, but he didn't stop. The fate of humanity rested on his ability to pull this off. Nearby, Dr. Emily Dawson monitored his progress. "How much longer?" she asked, her voice tense. "A few more minutes," Daniel replied without looking up. "I just need to bypass their final firewall." As the Krylos closed in on the Eclipse, Ryan made a desperate decision. "Prepare to launch decoy drones," he ordered. "If we can confuse them long enough, it might buy Daniel the time he needs." Sam nodded and gave the command. Moments later, a swarm of small, unmanned drones shot out from the Eclipse, scattering in all directions. The Krylos ships hesitated, their targeting systems struggling to distinguish between the real warship and the decoys. "It's working," Sam said, relief evident in her voice. "They're splitting their forces." Ryan allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction before turning back to the chaos around him. "Keep the pressure on them. We can't let up now." Back on the support vessel, Daniel finally broke through the Krylos defenses. "I'm in." he exclaimed, his voice cracking with excitement. "Uploading the virus now." Emily watched as lines of code scrolled across the screen. It's spreading through their network. Their ships are starting to lose coordination. On the battlefield, the effects became visible almost immediately. Krylos ships began drifting aimlessly, their weapons firing randomly as their systems faltered. The sudden disarray gave Earth's fleet a critical opening. All ships pressed the attack. Ryan ordered over the comms. Hit them while they're vulnerable. The fleet responded instantly, unleashing a barrage of missiles and laser fire at the confused alien vessels. Explosions erupted across the void as Krylos ships were destroyed one by one. For the first time since the battle began, hope surged among the human forces. But the victory was short-lived. The Krylos quickly realized what was happening and began isolating the infected parts of their network. Within minutes, their ships regained partial control, though their formations remained scattered. "We did it," Daniel said breathlessly, leaning back in his chair. "At least for now." Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "You bought us time. That's all we needed." Ryan watched the renewed fighting from the bridge of the Eclipse. The battle was far from over, but for the first time, he felt a flicker of optimism. Humanity had proven it could adapt, improvise, and fight back. And as long as they kept fighting, there was still a chance for survival. The brief advantage gained from Daniel's virus was slipping away. The Krylos fleet, though temporarily disoriented, adapted with alarming speed. Their ships regrouped, their weapons firing with renewed precision. Earth's forces fought valiantly, but the sheer size and power of the alien armada began to overwhelm them once again. The Eclipse shook violently as another plasma blast struck its hull, sending alarms blaring across the bridge. "We're losing structural integrity," an engineer shouted, his voice panicked. "Another hit like that, and we won't hold together." Commander Ryan Carter gripped the railing near his command chair, his knuckles white. He knew they couldn't keep this up much longer. The fleet was battered, supplies were running low, and morale was hanging by a thread. But giving up wasn't an option, not when so much was at stake. "Lieutenant Brooks," Ryan said, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "We need to take the fight to them. If we can disable their flagship, it might throw their entire fleet into chaos." Sam nodded, her expression grim. "It's risky, sir. Their flagship is heavily guarded. We'd be walking into a trap." "I know," Ryan replied. "But if we don't try, we're finished anyway. Prepare a strike team. I'm leading this one." Sam hesitated, then stepped closer to him. "Sir, you're needed here, if something happens to you." "I'll be fine," Ryan interrupted. "Besides, someone has to make sure this works. Get Corporal Hayes and Captain Thompson ready. We move in 10 minutes. The plan was simple but dangerous. A small team would board the Krylos flagship using stolen alien tech to bypass their shields. Once aboard, they would plant explosives deep within the ship's core, crippling it from the inside. It was a suicide mission, but Ryan didn't care. Humanity's survival depended on it. As the team prepared, Sam helped Ryan suit up, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted his armor. "You'd better come back, sir," she said quietly. "We can't do this without you." Ryan gave her a faint smile. "I'll do my best." Moments later, Ryan, Daniel Hayes, and Jake Thompson boarded a stealth shuttle and launched toward the Krylos flagship. The massive alien vessel loomed ahead, its surface covered in strange, biomechanical structures that pulsed faintly with light. It looked more like a living organism than a machine. "This place gives me the creeps," Jake muttered as they approached. "Stay focused," Ryan said. "We've got one shot at this." The shuttle docked in a secluded area of the flagship, and the team disembarked, moving cautiously through the dimly lit corridors. The air was thick with an acrid smell, and the walls seemed to hum with energy. Strange, insectoid creatures scuttled past them, too busy to notice the intruders. "This way," Daniel whispered, checking a handheld scanner. "The core is 2 levels down." They moved quickly, avoiding patrols and disabling security systems as they went. But their luck ran out when they reached a large chamber filled with Krylos soldiers. The aliens turned instantly, their weapons raising. "Take cover," Ryan shouted, diving behind a console as plasma blasts tore through the air. The team fought back, taking down several enemies before retreating into a side corridor. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but Ryan refused to give up. "Keep moving," he ordered. "We're almost there." Finally, they reached the core, a massive, pulsating sphere of energy surrounded by intricate machinery. Daniel set to work planting explosives while Ryan and Jake held off waves of Krylos reinforcements. "I've got it," Daniel yelled, backing away from the core. "Let's go." But as they turned to leave, the corridor was blocked by a swarm of Krylos drones. There was no way out. Ryan glanced at his team, then back at the drones. "Go," he said firmly. "I'll hold them off." "Sir, no," Jake protested. "It's an order," Ryan snapped. "Get out of here." "That's an order." Reluctantly, Daniel and Jake obeyed, sprinting toward the shuttle as Ryan stood his ground, firing relentlessly at the advancing drones. The last thing they heard over the comms was his voice, calm and resolute. "Tell Earth we didn't give up." Back aboard the Eclipse, Sam watched as the Krylos flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion, debris scattering across space. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't have time to mourn. The battle wasn't over yet. The destruction of the Krylos flagship sent shockwaves through their fleet. For a moment, chaos reigned as alien ships faltered, their coordination disrupted by the loss of their command center. Earth's forces seized the opportunity, launching a fierce counterattack. Pilots like Captain Jake Thompson led daring runs through enemy formations, targeting weakened vessels and scattering the Krylos' once imposing armada. On the bridge of the Eclipse, Lieutenant Samantha Brooks coordinated the assault, her voice steady despite the grief weighing heavily on her heart. Commander Ryan Carter's sacrifice had given them a fighting chance, and she was determined to honor it. "All ships, press the advantage," she ordered over the comms. "Hit them hard while they're disorganized." The fleet responded with everything they had left. Missiles streaked through space, slamming into Krylos cruisers and sending fiery explosions rippling across the battlefield. Smaller fighters darted between the larger ships, taking out drones and disabling weapon systems. For the first time since the battle began, humanity seemed to have the upper hand. But the Krylos weren't defeated yet. Despite the loss of their flagship, their remaining ships regrouped under secondary commanders, forming new strategies on the fly. Their plasma cannons roared to life once more, tearing through Earth's defenses with devastating precision. The Eclipse rocked violently as another blast struck its hull, forcing Sam to grab onto a nearby console for support. "Shields are down to 10%, an engineer shouted. "We can't take another direct hit." Sam clenched her fists, her mind racing. They were so close to turning the tide. But the Krylos still had the edge in numbers and firepower. She glanced at the viewport, where Jupiter loomed large against the backdrop of stars. An idea began to form. "Lieutenant," she said, turning to the navigation officer, "can we use Jupiter's gravity well to our advantage?" The officer hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, ma'am. If we lure them closer, we might be able to destabilize their formations." "Do it," Sam ordered. "Signal the fleet to fall back toward Jupiter. We'll draw them in and trap them." As the battered remnants of Earth's fleet retreated, the Krylos pursued relentlessly, eager to finish what they had started. Unaware of the trap being set, their ships followed the humans deeper into Jupiter's shadow. The massive gas giant dominated the view, its swirling storms casting eerie shadows across the battlefield. "Prepare the gravity slingshot maneuver," Sam instructed. "Once they're in range, execute the plan." Moments later, the Krylos fleet entered Jupiter's gravitational pull. The massive planet's immense force began to affect their trajectory, pulling them off course and disrupting their formations. Earth's ships took advantage of the confusion. launching salvos of missiles and laser fire at the struggling alien vessels. "It's working," someone exclaimed from the sensor station. "Their ships are colliding with each other." Sam allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction before turning back to the chaos around her. "Keep pushing. Don't let up now." The battle reached its climax as Earth's forces unleashed everything they had left. Fighters swarmed around the larger Krylos ships, targeting weak points and disabling engines. Explosions lit up the void as alien vessels were torn apart, their debris scattering across space. Amid the chaos, Admiral Laura Hayes' voice crackled over the comms. "This is Admiral Hayes to all ships. Reinforcements are inbound. Hold the line just a little longer." The news brought a surge of hope to the exhausted crews. Earth's reserve fleet, stationed near Mars, was finally arriving to join the fight. Dozens of fresh ships poured into the battlefield, their weapons blazing as they joined the assault. The combined force overwhelmed the already weakened Krylos fleet, turning the tide decisively in humanity's favor. As the last of the alien ships exploded in a brilliant flash of light, cheers erupted across the fleet. Exhausted but triumphant, the survivors of Earth's forces looked out at the wreckage scattered around Jupiter's orbit. Against all odds, they had won. Back aboard the Eclipse, Sam stood silently on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The cost of victory was heavy. Too many lives lost, too much pain endured. But they had protected Earth. Humanity had proven it could stand against even the greatest threats. Behind her, Corporal Daniel Hayes approached quietly. "We did it," he said softly. "Because of Commander Carter." Sam nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "He gave us a future. Now it's up to us to make sure it's worth it." The remnants of the Krylos fleet flood into the depths of space, their once mighty armada reduced to scattered debris and burning wreckage. Earth's forces watched in silence as the last alien ships disappeared beyond Jupiter's orbit, leaving behind only echoes of destruction. The battle was over, but the cost weighed heavily on every survivor. Lieutenant Samantha Brooks stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, her hands resting on the railing as she stared out at the void. The ship was battered, its systems barely holding together, but it had endured, just like humanity itself. Around her, officers worked quietly to assess the damage and tend to the wounded. No one spoke much. The enormity of what they had faced, and survived, was still sinking in. "Casualty reports are coming in," an officer said softly, breaking the silence. "We've lost nearly half the fleet. Thousands of lives. Gone." Sam closed her eyes for a moment, taking a deep breath. She thought about Commander Ryan Carter, who had given everything to ensure their victory. His sacrifice would never be forgotten, not by her, not by anyone aboard the Eclipse. "Prepare a memorial service," she said finally. "We'll honor them when we return to Earth." "Yes, Mom," the officer replied. Admiral Laura Hayes' voice came over the comms shortly after, her tone somber but proud. "This is Admiral Hayes to all surviving ships. You've done the impossible. Humanity owes you its survival. Return to Earth. We'll begin repairs and plan for the future." As the fleet began its slow journey back toward home, Sam reflected on what lay ahead. The Krylos had been defeated, but they weren't gone. Their empire spanned countless star systems, and this battle was only the beginning of a much larger war. Humanity had proven it could fight, but now it needed allies, friends among the stars who could help them stand against future threats. Dr. Emily Dawson joined Sam on the observation deck later that evening, her face pale but resolute. "I finished analyzing the vaccine," she said quietly. "It works. If the Krylos ever deploy their biological weapon, we'll be ready." "That's good news," Sam replied, managing a faint smile. "But let's hope we never need it." Emily nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. "Do you think we're ready for this? For what's coming next?" Sam looked out at the stars, their light twinkling faintly in the darkness. "I don't know," she admitted. "But we've got no choice. We can't go back to how things were before." This battle changed everything, for better or worse. When the fleet finally reached Earth's orbit days later, the planet below looked more beautiful than ever. Its blue ocean sparkled under the sun, its green continents stretched endlessly, and its skies were clear and bright. Survivors gathered on the decks of their ships, gazing down at their home with a mix of relief and determination. They had fought to protect it, and they would do so again if necessary. As the Eclipse docked at a space station above Earth, Sam stepped onto the hangar bay floor, her boots echoing softly against the metal. Crowds of people waited to greet the returning heroes, their faces filled with gratitude and sorrow. Families embraced soldiers, tears streaming down cheeks as stories of loss and bravery were shared. Among the crowd, Jake Thompson approached Sam, his expression weary but hopeful. "What happens now?" he asked. Sam glanced at him, then back at Earth. "Now we rebuild, and we prepare. The galaxy knows we're here now. They saw what we're capable of. Some will see us as a threat. Others might see us as allies. Either way, humanity has a place among the stars." Jake nodded slowly. "A dangerous place. A necessary one," Sam corrected. "Commander Carter gave us a chance to build something greater than ourselves. It's up to us to make sure his sacrifice wasn't in vain." Days turned into weeks as Earth began the long process of recovery. Monuments were erected to honor the fallen, and stories of heroism spread across the globe. Humanity had taken its first steps into the wider universe, and though the road ahead was uncertain, there was hope. In the shadow of Jupiter, Earth had unveiled its might, and the galaxy had watched in awe.